In Australia, tourists Greg and Heather arrive at a pier for a cage diving tour to swim with sharks. A vendor named Dave warns them that on a recent trip, a shark bit off a college student's groin, but they dismiss it as a joke. Just then, the tour guide Tucker pulls up and chats with them, learning no one knows they're on this trip, something he teases them about. They all board Tucker's boat, and on the way, he shares intense shark encounter stories. He's been swimming with sharks since childhood and even shows off a massive scar. When they reach the dive site, Tucker tosses Chum into the water to draw the sharks. Heather grows uneasy and freaks out when she sees a fin. She decides to back out, but Tucker has her try meditating, then randomly starts singing the baby shark song. She's caught off guard, but laughs and finally relaxes. Greg and Heather get into the cage, and Tucker lowers them into the sea. Sharks swarm around them, and Heather starts to panic, overwhelmed by all the teeth. Greg calms her down, and they both admire the shark's majestic nature. Soon after, they're back on the boat, and Heather is thrilled by the experience, until Tucker suddenly stabs Greg and tosses his body into the water while Heather screams. The next day, American surfer Zephyr is catching waves. Later at a convenience store, she hears Moses asking for jumper cables, but there aren't any left. He asked her directly, but she lies and says no. She then pays for a cheap Slurpee, hiding a full ice cream tub inside to steal it. Outside, Moses threatens to expose her unless she gives him a ride, so she reluctantly agrees. During the drive, he chats non-stop, annoying Zephyr until she tells him to shut up. Once they reach his car, she notices his surfboards, and they bond over their shared love of surfing. Zephyr realizes he's not so bad, and Moses admits he wouldn't have told on her anyway. They jump-start his car using her van, and when the radio comes on, they realize they like the same music. That night, the two hook up in Zephyr's van outside Moses' house. As a joke, he tosses her fin key out the window. Afterward, they talk and learn more about each other. Moses heads inside to make breakfast, but when he returns, the van and Zephyr is gone. Zephyr is actually at the beach ready to surf, but realizes she forgot her fin key. She checks a nearby truck and is startled by the owner, Tucker. He gives her a spare key and compliments her bravery for surfing alone. As he leaves, Zephyr gets a message from Moses asking why she left. She says it was to catch early waves, but she hesitates when he asks to join. Suddenly, Tucker bags her head. Zephyr struggles, but he holds on until she blacks out. He injects her with something, tapes her mouth, and hides her in a surfboard bag in the back of his truck. Tucker drives to the pier, where Dave's dog barks constantly. He carries Zephyr onto the boat and locks her away. Hours later, Moses finds her van abandoned. He calls her, but her phone's inside. Zephyr wakes up handcuffed to a bed, trapped in a room with Heather and a shared pee bucket. She screams for help, but Tucker just enjoys her cries during breakfast. On the wall, she sees another woman's name scratched in. Proof this isn't the first time. She searches for anything to pick the lock, but finds nothing. Heather explains no one's looking for her, and Zephyr admits she's in the same situation. Meanwhile, Moses heads to work and sees Zephyr's van being towed. He rushes to the police, explaining she lives in it and wouldn't abandon it. But when asked for her full name, he doesn't know it, so they can't file a report. On the boat, Heather cries, saying she'll never see her mom again and regrets not listening to her. Zephyr reveals she grew up in foster care, did time in juvie, and came to Australia to escape. She makes a joke to lighten the mood, and Heather laughs. That's when Zephyr notices Heather's bikini top has underwire and asks for it. Heather tosses it to her, and Zephyr begins picking the lock, until Tucker enters. He gives them food and sits uncomfortably close to Zephyr, talking about ocean predators. He even tastes her sweat before leaving. Zephyr tosses the top back to Heather and keeps working on the lock, but dizziness hits. Tucker likely drugged the water because Heather collapses too. Tucker returns, steals the wire, and Zephyr blacks out again. She wakes handcuffed to a deck chair as Tucker sets up lights and a camera. Heather is tied to a crane. Tucker says God isn't above but down in the sea. He says watching Zephyr surf made him feel spiritual, and killing makes him feel the same. After snipping some of Heather's hair, he wakes her up. She screams as he slowly lowers her above the water. He films her terrified face as sharks tear her apart in seconds. Zephyr screams while Tucker calls it the greatest show on earth. Later, back in the room, Zephyr scratches her and Heather's names into the wall and uncovers layers of names hidden under fresh paint. Meanwhile, Tucker drinks and dances, excited from the kill. He places Heather's tape and hair in a cupboard full of past victims and writes Zephyr's name on a fresh one. Heather's body floats beneath the waves. The next morning, Moses tries surfing again, but can't focus. He finds a broken board near the rocks and worries Zephyr was hurt. Back on the boat, Tucker brings her food, but she kicks the tray and mocks him. He defends himself, saying sharks need to eat too. Zephyr says he thinks he's a predator, but he's just a worm. That stings, and Tucker storms off. Zephyr then spots the pee bucket has a metal handle and breaks it off. That night, Tucker prepares a sedative and enters the room. As he approaches with a syringe, Zephyr stabs him in the neck with the handle. He falls back, hitting his head, and she grabs the keys to free herself. But Tucker wakes and lunges. Zephyr runs for the door. He grabs her leg and injects her, but she kicks him off and races to the control room to radio for help. No one answers. Seeing a cruise ship nearby, she runs to the deck and yells, but music drowns her out. Tucker appears with a knife, so Zephyr hurls the camera into the sea. Zephyr jumps into the water to escape, but the sedative kicks in and she blacks out. Tucker drags her back. By now, the police have begun searching. Watching the effort, Moses gets an idea. He opens an app called Wave Watch, which shows beach cam footage. He re-watches the clip from that night and sees a truck driving off with Zephyr's van. Zooming in reveals a logo, Tucker Experience. He looks it up online. Meanwhile, Tucker goes ashore for supplies. Zephyr wakes up and tries to scream, but tape covers her mouth again. Moses finds a number and calls, but Tucker isn't on the boat. He leaves a message. Tucker buys a new camera, then spots a new tourist, his next target. At the same time, Moses finds the pier and bangs on the boat's door, but no one answers. As he's about to leave, he hears a faint voice and smashes a window to enter. Armed with a hook, he searches and finds Zephyr. After pulling off the tape, she begs him to call the police. While she works on the cuffs, Moses calls 911, but Tucker appears and knocks him down. Moses tries to fight back but is overpowered and loses the phone. Tucker stabs him with a hook, kicks him, and tosses the phone. Moses recovers just enough to hit Tucker with a bag and choke him with the hook. But Dave suddenly arrives and knocks Moses out, thinking he's an intruder. Dave hears Zephyr calling and follows her voice, only to be killed by Tucker, who stabs him in the head. The dog keeps barking, but Tucker growls it away. Tucker locks the room and starts the boat toward Hangman's Skulls. Moses wakes up cuffed beside Zephyr. He asks why she left after they hooked up. She says it was for the waves, but he knows better. She's afraid of real connection. He tells her he likes her as she is. The boat stops, and Tucker knocks Moses out again. Later, Moses wakes tied to the deck with Dave's body. Zephyr is chained nearby and pleads for mercy. Tucker activates the crane, lowering Moses towards shark-filled water. Zephyr begs him to take her instead, but he mocks her. Moses is lowered in, but stays still, confusing the sharks. They swim off. Furious, Tucker pulls Moses back up and stabs him, letting blood drip into the sea. Sharks return. Just then, a search helicopter flies by, so Tucker hides the pair again. Zephyr fears Moses is dying, so she makes a bold decision. She dislocates her thumb to escape. Before she can finish, Tucker appears again. He gives her food and says she's just like him, a shark. After he leaves, Zephyr tries again, but even with her thumb out, she can't slip free, so she starts chewing. That night, Tucker comes in with a sedative, but finds her bed empty and her thumb on the pillow. Zephyr ambushes him, locks him out, and rushes to the control room to start the boat. Tucker uses the emergency hatch and cuts the power. The boat stops. Zephyr sees a party on a nearby island and searches for a flare. When Tucker returns, she shoots the flare at him and flees. She hides in the kitchen, climbs up, and breaks the skylight glass. As she escapes, her harness gets stuck, and Tucker barges in. They both slip, and Zephyr grabs a pan, while Tucker grabs a knife. She stabs his hand and knocks him out with the pan before running again. Tucker gets up and rushes to the deck to spot her swimming. He grabs his harpoon but loses sight of her. He jumps into his speedboat. Zephyr reaches the island, but Tucker catches her and drags her back. Moses wakes up cuffed again, and Zephyr is now hanging above the water. Tucker splashes her awake and rambles about fish that fight. A shark circles below. He lowers her. As the shark nears, she kicks it away. Tucker jabs at it with the hook, but the shark grabs the weapon and swims off. Zephyr steals the hook and uses it to climb the crane, but the shark returns. Tucker startles her and she falls in. The shark approaches, but after locking eyes with her, it backs off, having been wounded by Tucker too. Zephyr climbs aboard, sneaks around, finds the harpoon, and shoots Tucker, launching him into the water. The massive shark leaps and devours him in one bite. The camera captures everything. Zephyr nearly gets dragged down with the harpoon, but lets go and swims back. She fires another flare, calling for help. A ship sounds its horn from the island. Zephyr finds Moses unconscious and begs him to wake up. Finally, his eyes open, and he whispers, "I knew it." And that's Dangerous Animals. Part shark horror, part serial killer nightmare. With brutal kills, real underwater tension, and a twisted villain, this one dives deep into madness. If you enjoyed the ride, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. We've got plenty more killer recaps coming your way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.